everyone, it's Susan. So if you saw the first video or heard the first podcast we did with Lisa from Feng Shui, Arizona on just getting better flow, balance, getting unstuck in your life, this is the follow-up video for that. But if you haven't seen that, go back and watch that one because they work in tandem together. So today we are going to talk about business, money, the green stuff, the good stuff. And so whether or not you are working for someone or you have a business, you work from home, you work in an office, it doesn't matter. This is for you. So one of the things that we want to look at with Feng Shui is just how do we create more energy in any aspect of your life, and today is business and money. So with that, Lisa, thank you so much for joining me. We're here in Lisa's beautiful store, and so we're talking business and money, and why don't you explain a little bit, just for the people who are listening, what can Feng Shui do when it comes to our business?
Well, number one, it can put you into an environment. Now, remember, this is all about your environment. Because when you're in the proper environment, you can create more business, you can think more clearly, and your brain and your subconscious can take your own personal power and move them better and make you stronger. So when in Feng Shui, it's just space related. We need that space to be everything that it can be and to create for you what you want it to create. It's probably the most important thing that we can do.
That's powerful, creating for you what you want it to create, because oftentimes in business what I see is people have a very specific goal, an idea about what they want, and then I hear this all the time, I'm stuck, I'm stuck, I'm stuck. And sometimes changing some things in your environment can release the energy that is required to get to that next level. So I know, Lisa, you have some very specific tips of things people can do right now. Let's talk about, if you saw the other video or heard our podcast on this, we're going to talk about clutter again, just because if they didn't hear it, you need to hear this message. So what's the number one thing? We've got to clear the clutter. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, get everything out of the space that doesn't need to be there. You and your space. And then you can create something within the space. And Susan, you said something really important, that you have a goal that you're trying to reach. The next step is to make sure that you know what you want. And if you know what you want, that's huge, because now all we have to do is get it. A lot of people can't even get to that step of knowing what they want. So once we have that, now think about this too. We're going from a psychic reality to a three-dimensional reality. So if we not only think about what we want, but let's write it down. So let's write down our goal in a physical form. Now, if we take that goal and we put it into a red envelope, what happens is now we're giving it energy. Because the red brings energy to things and supports it and brings it basically adds fire to it. It's kind of like putting a little fire under your butt. Okay?
I love it.
So we put the goal in here. Now we're going to put it into the wealth area of the space, which is typically the furthest left-hand corner, depending on what type of Feng Shui you're using. It can also be the southeast corner. It doesn't matter. Feng Shui is about balance. Okay? As long as the environment is balanced, this is going to work. And clutter-free.
Yes,
okay?
Clutter-free.
So once we put our goal into the envelope, we can also put it into some kind of jar that basically just represents wealth. So we just want, and it can be any jar. Traditionally, they used a ginger jar shape that the teas would come in. So any type of jar. Now also, thanks Susan, it's sort of fun to put, these are Chinese coins. The hole in the middle represents earth and the circle represents heaven. Them coming together is supposed to bring your heaven and earth luck together. So now we have these coins hanging on the jar, and that's to bring your heaven and earth luck together. So we put some things on there that are very old. And what we say, they've already created a groove into our environment. And that groove is very old. So subconsciously, it's also helping us to realize our dreams.
That's powerful. And I know there are some people who like to put other additional things in their wealth jar. What else might people put in?
Well, one of our favorites is the Hotai Buddha. And one of the big mistakes we make with our Feng Shui cures is people will call me and say, they're not working anymore. I need to come get some more. And we have a Feng Shui store, but then we say, you don't need any more. Okay? Because if you don't keep them clean and you don't keep paying attention to them, they quit working. It's like anything else. If you don't pay attention to the lights in your dining room chandelier, they're going to go out and it's going to stop working. So the same with your Feng Shui cures. So Hotai Buddha, it's good to rub his tummy 3 times a day. Okay? And he can go in front of, or we have little ones that can go in the wealth jar. Again, if you want to declutter, you can put everything in that wealth jar. But he is, just so you know, he's actually traditionally a Japanese cure. And he was originally used for the stove, and he's just representative of wealth. So it's more about just creating prosperity for the person, which is why he's perfect in front of a wealth jar.
That's awesome. And some of you are so stuck, you'll rub a Buddha 3 times a day right now because you don't care, right? Like that's the place you're in. And you're like, if that's what it takes, Susan, that's what it takes. It's all good. Now, I noticed that you also have some other things over here. You have a crystal, a little turtle.
The crystals, of course, are one of our favorites just because when energy gets stuck, we hang a crystal and typically it'll help to move the energy. Sometimes you don't have power over where it's getting stuck. It can get stuck in a hallway where there's more than 3 doors. It can get stuck when 2 doors are coming too close together. It can get stuck in an entry that's too small where the foyer isn't big enough. So there's a lot of places that energy can get stuck that we don't have a lot of power to move it without removing a wall or changing the entire house floor plan. So we use crystals to override that. And we typically use them, the round ones. They come in all different colors. They can be as attractive or just clear as you want them to be. Traditionally in Feng Shui, we ask people to put them on 9 or 18-inch red strings. 9 is the number of completion. But for some of my homes, we've made special crystals that are a little prettier. But the funny thing about Feng Shui cures is when we're putting them up, we think, oh, everybody's going to come in, they're going to notice all my cures. People are not as perceptive as you think they are. And most of the time, they will just get put up and no one will see them. In fact, you will stop seeing them. So again, it becomes very important to pay attention to your cures.
That's a great tip. And we have some cures in our house. And at first, my husband was like, everyone's going to notice this one thing. The only one person who has noticed it is Bree, who also works at Step Into Your Power and does Feng Shui too. So she noticed it, but no one else has noticed it, which is a great point. Now, what about the little guy you have right there, the turtle or the tortoise?
So we typically will use a tortoise, and they represent long life. So tortoise, see if you can see this properly, a tortoise typically lives for around 100 years unless it gets sick. So it never dies of old age. So we use them around our money jars to make the money last longer. We also use them in front of people's pictures to make them last longer if they're not feeling that good. But the neat thing about the tortoise is one thing we need to remember. We don't have to make as much money if the money we have lasts longer. So the tortoise is really a handy tool for retention of money.
That's so perfect. We don't have to make as much money if the money that we make lasts longer. So I want to ask you this question. I know a lot of people who are watching and viewing, they're going to make some changes. They're going to clear the clutter. They're going to do a wealth jar. They're excited. One of the things I've often taught my organizational students is that they should always clean up their desk at the end of the day. So when they start the next day, it's clean. And what are your thoughts on that?
It's really important. And many people will tell me, I can't function on that clean of a desk. And I can actually see in their charts when I do chart readings that they're correct. So it's a little hard. Some people actually function better like that, but most people don't. And we've noticed, like in businesses, the people that actually get promoted and get the raises and those kind of things typically have the clear desks because it looks like they're working harder, they're more professional. And as much as you might be very good at your job and be able to have a cluttered desk, get a little bit of self-control, get it cleaned up, because overall it's going to be better for the energy.
You heard it from Lisa. Now you've heard it from me and you've heard it from Lisa. Lisa, final question for you. I know you've worked with you've worked with restaurants, you've worked with hotels, you've worked with business people. Is there any story particularly that might come to mind about a client that used some of these things and they saw some changes in their business, their productivity?
Actually, now, we were able to do some directional feng shui for this client, but my one that always sits the most is we went over and did her business and did her house, and she called me a week later, and she said, Lisa, I need your help. And I said, what's wrong? And she said, you got to slow it down. She said, you just got to, I don't have the staff for this. And that's what we want to hear. But sometimes those are simple things. But really what we're looking for is a nice, clear, harmonious movement. So we did slow hers down because that wasn't harmonious. Okay.
Some of us just want it sped up. Like, that's okay. We're not there yet.
We'll make it work. But those kind of things happen. But feng shui can really, you do have to remember, you've got environment, that's about a third. You've got your personal attitude, that's about a third. And you have your destiny. So you're going to get 66% just by having a good space and a great attitude.
A good space and a great attitude. You heard it from Lisa. Check out her website. It's fengshuiaz.com, fengshuiaz.com. And for more great tips like this, check out our website, susansly.com. We have blogs, we have videos. We'd love to hear from you. And if you make some changes, which I hope you do, please go and post your photos, post your before and after. Let us know what's going on, because our goal in life is to help to provide you with more productivity tips so you can go lead an amazing, fulfilling life. So with that, go rock your day, and can't wait to connect with you next time.